This step card is about simplifying complex numbers, especially the ones we're going to talk about right now are going to be negative numbers inside a radical. So go ahead and make a note for yourself about that in the front of this card, and let's start out with something that looks like a perfect square. So the square root of negative 144, we recognize 144 as 12 times 12. But like we talked about in class, it's easier to see this as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 144. Out of the square root of 1, we will pull an I, and outside of the square root of 144, we would pull a 12. So in order to simplify the square root of negative 144, we would get 12i. I am going to do another example that does not come out so perfectly. On the bottom half of your card, write the square root of negative 500. Now, if you're going through how to figure this out, you're going to want to maybe make a list for yourself of the perfect squares. And perfect squares occur when you have these integer numbers times themselves to get these squared numbers, which are familiar to you from your times tables list, right? So you might want to make a list all the way through 10 for yourself as you're figuring these out. So 1 times 1 is 1. We've got 4 when we do 2 squared, 9 when we do 3 squared, 16, 25 when we get 5 squared, 36, and so on and so forth. It's good to have a list of these to use to divide by that number because they might be a factor of the number inside the radical. So in this case, I'm not going to divide by 1 when I'm looking at negative 500. I could divide by 4. I could divide by 25, but there's an even higher one that I could divide by, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this 10 out of this number. So I am thinking of it as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 100 times the square root of 5. And when I simplify that, the square root of negative 1 is I. My card is running out. The square root of 100 is 10, and the square root of 5 cannot be reduced, so we keep it here. So I'm sorry I'm out of room. Hopefully on your card you allotted more space. So your final simplified answer would be 10i times the square root of 5. In this case, I'm going to make another one about using prime factorization if you'd like to use that tool, but hopefully this gets you unstuck and helps you in simplifying complex numbers, especially negative numbers under a radical. Thank you.